Thank you for watching Lira Scoop. We are glad you are here.
On the 13 news of Kole, Dokolo, and Amara. So you can. On the 10th.
It's a pleasure to have this press briefing. We completed Acholi sub-region yesterday evening. Yesterday we did Agago district and Pader. Unfortunately, there are places we had planned to go to in Agago and Pader, which we were not able to go to because it rained and a certain part got cut off, like Patongo and Liraparwo. The only area which is left now in Acholi sub-region is Gulu City, which will be doing end of December. So tomorrow we are going to start with the tour of Lango sub-region. It's going to be, Tuke and Aleptong. Then the following day, 11th, will be in Rira district, and in the afternoon we'll be doing Kwania. Then we have 12th November, we'll be spending it in Apache, and then 13th November, Kole, Dokoro, and Amorata. And then we will be leaving to Teso sub-region. But again in December, we'll be coming back for Rira City, because we are going to do the cities at the end, or cities at the end. Acholi sub-region had more or less the same challenges that we faced in other sub-regions where we have been. We are going to start tomorrow. We'll be able to see whether the same challenges elsewhere are the challenges which Lango sub-region faces. Basically, lack of drugs. There's no place where we found any government facilities where they have drugs. Low levels of the educational systems. Poor pay for teachers. Lack of jobs for youth. Even where the few jobs which are got, we've not been to any district so far, and we do ask every district you go to whether there is a system where they can access jobs without paying a bribe. No district have we been to so far where you find a clear, transparent system where a young man or woman can be able to get a job just by doing an interview, and the moment they are successful, be able to get a job without bribing. I really hope we'll be able to get to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 districts in this country. But the way the trend is, it's quite worrying, because by tomorrow I think we'll be starting the 40th district. So if you find out of the 39 we've been so far in, out of 147, that none yet where you can find that experience that a young man or woman can get a job without paying a bribe. It's quite frightening. And we keep expressing that. The levels of poverty, everywhere we've been so far. We go to towns, we go to rural communities, and the cries are similar. Inability to cater for their basic needs. And then issues of injustice. There are areas specifically where you find that heavy in terms of land. Areas like Unyoro, areas like Uganda, and then the east, western side of Acholi, mostly Nwoya, Amuru, where you find problems of land, and poor people basically are highly vulnerable, because accessing justice is one of the biggest challenges people have, who are grieved, either whose land has been taken or properties have been taken by the rich and powerful. The dilemma of our situation is that if you don't have money and the systems have been compromised, where you cannot have the investigative agencies of the state, CID, investigating in an uncompromising professional way, that doesn't exist. So if you don't have money to bribe, your case is not going to be well investigated. And therefore, that's the beginning of the weakness in the system. Even if your case ends up in court, most courts are highly compromised. So again, if you don't have money, that's a challenge. So basically, people who are poor in this country are highly vulnerable. Someone is rich, can take your property, your land, or whatever else they've taken, and you won't have any, you won't be accorded justice the way systems function now. Now, the danger in that, of course, if it is not curtailed and reversed, then who knows? Worst case scenario, we could end up like a country like Haiti. Haiti has been independent for more than 200 years, but they don't have systems of governance. They don't have strong institutions. They don't have systems of delivery of services. They don't have protection for the citizens. So a country like Haiti, they're powerful. You have money, you have access to weapons, they have gangs. You rule wherever you are. My hope is that we don't end up like that. But clearly, that's the direction there seems to be, the culture. People who have money are powerful. They can literally do anything and go with it. The sense of impunity that is in this country. And the poor are marginalized, and they almost are not protected, highly vulnerable. That's where contention really needs to be focused by anybody in this country who wants to see a country that has fairness, has justice. Let's keep focused on that. We should not lose sight of that, because we have seen those trends in a significant number of countries in Latin America and a few here on the African continent, where the wealthy rule, whether in government, whether outside government. And the worst case scenario in such cases that eventually you even get gangs, of people who are wealthy can create gangs of people who have weapons, and they can really do whatever they want to do. We really hope we won't end up that way. And agriculture being one area where ordinarily any sensible government, any government that wants to develop people, needs to focus on education. There's clear failure in regard to that. There are low levels of, or low standards of in the educational system. Poor pay for teachers. The second area ordinarily in any country that focuses on developing the people is health. It's clear failure in that, in the sense that there are no drugs in hospitals, the health service systems are broken down, the healthcare workers are completely, they lack motivation because of the environment in which they operate. And then the third basic normally is food security. To have people who are able to eat well, but also have 3 meals a day. Most places, at least the peasants, wherever you find them, most of them cannot afford to have more than, and the town dwellers mostly. The town dwellers are even worse off than the people who are in the rural areas. The town dwellers, you'll hardly get many people who eat 3 meals a day. Even those who eat 1 meal a day, most of them, it is, it's a struggle. And then poor roads. Yes, those who are lucky enough, like in Bunyoro where they have the oil roads, you find that in that area, at least they have that kind of advantage. But you get off where the tarmac is and you get into the rural areas, the roads are absolutely a nightmare. Last night, last night we passed through one of the worst roads that we've been to so far. The road between Acholi and Rira. Actually, we were planning to get to Acholi. We never even reached Acholi because we found the place blocked, so we had to turn around and come. It's one of the worst roads that we have been to so far in the rest of the country where we have been. And of course, that has an impact on crop prices. It has an impact on those who are doing farming and even trade, because if you are using that kind of road, transportation costs go high. And so that's what we've seen. That's what as we concluded the tour in Acholi land. Now tomorrow we are starting with Lango, and I've already indicated to you the areas we are going to go to. We will want to find out if Lango is doing any better in terms of roads, whether the educational standards are higher than other sub-regions. We would be trying to ask people to find out if they have got drugs in hospitals, what the health services are to them. We'll also be trying to find out in the districts where we go, whether there is any of the districts where young people can get jobs without paying bribes. We would be wanting to find out if there are any issues of injustices on land. And we'll also be wanting to find out if there is any support in terms of those who are in agriculture, because agriculture holding about 70% of the population. Because we always want to, we engage with people. The nature of our campaign is through engagements. We engage with the communities where we go, in town settings, in rural areas. We ask questions, we get to know what pains people. We've been asking people their dreams in a number of places where we go to. We'll also be doing the same thing in Lango. And then we also offer what we believe are solutions to those problems are. And according to our manifesto, our solutions as we offer them to the people is that one, disciplined government. That's at the core. Whatever else you want to do as a government in form of solutions, you first have to have people who are honest, people who care about people who care about the country, first and foremost, for you to succeed. And therefore start with eliminating corruption. Because the moment you eliminate corruption, you save a significant portion, even in the first 1 or 2 years, a significant portion of what we lose, which is $2 billion United States dollars every year. You can imagine when you save that, then you inject it into the critical areas like education, like health, like agriculture, and then the supportive infrastructure, energy, road networks, rail, water, transportation, water provision for human beings and for animals. So tomorrow we will roll out, and we will be giving a briefing at the end of Lango to know whether what happens elsewhere is, again, what exists within Lango. And wherever we've gone, we've been asking people to terminate Genome 7's administration on the 15th of January, because NRM cannot solve the problems. Genome 7 can no longer solve any problem. It's actually become part of the problem. And any day longer that he stays in power, the closer and closer we get to what could actually become a crisis in this country. Being a regime which has basically planted or nourished and systematically built a culture of impunity, a culture of manipulation and deception, the use of money in politics, and the use of the authoritative instruments of coercion. So we have a situation that we really need to handle carefully. My hope is that all of us who are involved in politics need to know that we are dealing with a delicate situation, and therefore, and I believe, using the skills that we have to see how we can manage that situation after Genome 7 is retired, hopefully, if the population really reads our messages well and comes on board and we retire him, then how to manage a country to ensure that we establish stability and then move the country on track. We talk about discipline of those who are in leadership, honesty and integrity. They are critical. There are people who may not understand that, but there is no party which can put this country back on track unless it has leaders who are disciplined, who care about justice, who care about equality before the law. Those are things you can't touch, but which are so critical in the management of a country that can prosper. Prosperity is not only in wealth, prosperity is also in the state of being of the human beings. In one of the areas where I was reminding people about a new vision story I read about 2, 3, or 4 years ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, that specified that about 14 million people, that is out of 45, 47 million, require psychiatric attention. It was a new vision story, and it was based on research. So you can imagine, even if you have roads, even if you have whatever else you have in terms of infrastructure. But if you have a population that is really unhealthy at the point that they need psychiatric attention, that's huge. 14 million people, that's huge. So we have to look at prosperity not only in terms of the physical infrastructure, but the well-being of people. The manner in which they feed, the manner in which they think, the health in terms of the mind. And you can't have 14 million people requiring psychiatric attention unless they have an environment that is destabilizing to them. So development in terms of one infrastructure is really absolute, it's almost borders on criminal irresponsibility on those who are in government. Because roads, power, and other things which are infrastructure are only to facilitate the human being. The human being is the first, the core focal point where a country needs to focus to develop them. All other things that are, whether it is power, whether it is roads, whether it is hospitals, those are facilitators to the development of the human being. Once the human being is developed, the country develops. But NRM doesn't seem to know that. And the dilemma is that people also seem not to understand that that should be the core. But we have to keep pushing the message until we have a critical number that will be saying enough is enough. And then we terminate this regime on General Museveni on 15th of January. Thank you, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Areas that would want to focus attention on as a government. 1, 70% of the population is rural and is in agriculture. 2, food security is one of the basics if you want to focus on the development of a human being, a citizen. It is food security, it is education and training, and then health. Because once you take care of those 3, then basically you have the person whom you want to focus attention onto in terms of development. And that person at the same time is the instrument of development itself. Because once you have a well-educated, well-trained human being who is healthy, who feeds well, then in the first place, it creates the innovative and creative capabilities to heighten. A person is whole when all those 3 are together, are put together. Then the rest is implementing the plans that you have. Therefore, you have also to create the political management environment in which, 1, there is justice, there is fair play, there is accountability. And then backing up that person in whatever area of endeavor they are in. If they're in farming, whether it's livestock, whether it is crop, if they're in fishing, if they're in small-scale industries, if they are in manufacturing, if they are in the service industries, like tourism, if they have a hotel or whatever. Now, once they go in that, then there are issues like financing. Financing, you have to ensure that you have got, for example, development funds. In this case, if you have UDB and any other banks that you can start, where they can access cheap financing to put into the enterprises in which they are. Because most of those enterprises, be it agriculture, be it small-scale industries, be it in services industry, like someone putting up a hotel for tourists, they need cheap financing. Long-term, low-interest rate. Once you have all those things in place, there's absolutely no way how a country cannot develop. Now, specifically in agriculture that you are talking about, the unfortunate thing is that the cooperative spirit literally collapsed. And I think that's the area of challenge. Because many of the people who are involved in agriculture do not have any idea as to how cooperatives used to operate. And people now tend to be individualistic. And yet, when you are a rural farmer and you are an individual, you are highly vulnerable. 1, you cannot negotiate prices as an individual farmer. Maybe you have got 3, 4, 5, 10 acres. The middlemen will exploit you. The advantage of cooperatives was collective bargaining. Because you have got, if you have got a cooperative society of 5,000 farmers, 10,000 farmers, say in a whole district or in a sub-county. They are growing same maize. The cooperative union first, once they have a government which backs them up with resources, that's why we intend to re-establish the cooperative bank. They are trying on their own, but I get a sense that this government is not giving them any form of support. And yet, without a cooperative bank, the cooperative unions can't do, the cooperative societies cannot do much. The critical nature of a cooperative bank is that one, government can give backup in different ways, that they build storage facilities, modern storage facilities. It's a critical area. Because if you cannot store your crops, you are highly vulnerable to those who will want to manipulate prices, because you are fearful that your crop may spoil. But if you have got silos where you know that you can keep, individuals cannot do that. And that's why a cooperative is very, very important. A cooperative, again, is also very, very important, because the small-scale farmers who have got 4 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres, they need capital. One, if they are going to use tractors, which is necessary, because if you use the hoe, you're only going to open up as a family 1, 2 acres. Some of them say up to 3 acres. If you have 20 acres, it means you can only use 3. You cannot use the rest, because you are not using agricultural machinery, in this case tractors. But if you are going to use tractors, you need capital. Tilling twice, some regions, I don't know how it is here in Lango, but like in the areas where I've been, it's 100,000 per acre. So if you are tilling twice, that's 200,000. If you're opening a 20-acre farm, that's 4 million. Most of the peasants will not have that kind of money. You need money for seeds. Seeds that can be expensive. If you are going to plant like 20 acres. Then you need money in places where they need fertilizer. Some places they may not need, because the land is still fertile. Some areas they need fertilizer. If you need fertilizer, and then pesticides, all that is money. When you have a cooperative union, what it does, they can get all these to you on credit. And then after harvest is when you pay the bank. So the cooperative union becomes a guarantor. Because most of these places you can't even go, they don't have titles, most of them don't even have titles. So you have no mortgage. You cannot go and mortgage land when you don't have title. So the cooperative organization becomes a guarantor, and therefore you can access all this. Agriculture is one of the areas where people can be developed faster, and I keep saying mostly in the 3 regions so far that still have that advantage. Acholi land, Lango, and Teso. That's areas where you still have people who still have some land as individual holdings. 10 acres, 15, 20 acres. Southern part, Busoga, Buganda, Ankole, Chigezi, Toro. Yes, parts of Bunyoro also have land still. So, where they still have land is an opportunity, but it is short-lived. I keep on communicating to people, and hopefully the leaders also catch on. It's temporary, and the window is maybe about 20 to 30 years, because population is increasing. And the more population increases, the more there will be subdivisions to young people being allocated land. So even Lango, Acholi, and Teso, and parts of Bunyoro, in another 25, 30 years, they also find themselves in the same situation the South finds itself, where you find their family sitting on 1 acre, 1.5 acre, 2 acres. So this window of opportunity would be used once you have those kinds of backup by a government, if the government has disciplined leaders, where they are used to back up the farmers through the cooperatives, through cheap financing, through acquisition of all the things which are needed. And then they start building a capital base. Because once they make savings, then they can invest in other things. So that eventually, even when land holdings become small, someone has already invested in other ventures that will be, from which they'll be able to get money that sustains them. But also, once they make savings, they can engage in the value chain. For example, agro-processing. The cooperative union can go into agro-processing. Right now, most of the people in agro-processing are individual rich entrepreneurs. But a cooperative representing many people can go in and, for example, start agro-processing ventures where they squeeze oil out of the different crops. They can invest in all nature of agro-processing. If you look at the import bill of the packaged foods here in Uganda, it is in multi-billions. So if you have farmers who are brought together, they can engage in the value chains and in that value chain and go into agro-processing on a massive scale, and therefore be able to go into the domestic market. That's the only way you can, I think, lift people out of poverty. And the more that happens, the more employment is created. Because if you have people who are prospering as farmers, and if they go into the value chain of agro-processing, then you create jobs for the youth. The unfortunate thing for the youth is the corruption. Because even the few who get jobs have to do what? Have to bribe. And then, of course, youth who want to go into ventures, again, they also need in smaller scale industries. Someone who wants to go in and package maybe cheese, maybe package fish fillets, or maybe package yogurt, or maybe package juices, or maybe squeeze the oil out of avocado, whatever. Again, they will need cheap financing, long-term repayment periods. Again, you can integrate the youth and the women in that kind of infrastructure that you establish to promote development at the individual level and at the collective level as well. Well, democracy is easier talked about than practiced. You can't have democracy without Democrats. Most people think that you can build democracy without Democrats. And the most unfortunate thing that people do not seem to understand that there is no way you can have democratic practice in a country unless you have democratic practice in the entities that govern. The entities which govern are political parties. Political parties need to be the grounds on which Democrats are trained. Because to be democratic it goes with a number of other things, other qualities. For example, tolerance. There's no way you can have democracy unless you have a culture of tolerance. Because to be democratic means that you fully understand or you grasp the fact that you cannot agree 100% on all things. That there are variations in thinking, variations in strategy, variations in the manner and style of governance. That therefore, there must be an environment where there is tolerance to different ideas. That can only be grown in political parties. As long as political parties are not yet democratic, there's no way you're going to have democracy in a country. It's not possible. Unless people don't even understand that relationship. And what is almost frightening is that people have simply thought that political parties are no longer necessary. So they want individuals. Individuals are not going to govern. It's parties which will govern unless we change our constitution. And there's no NGO which is going to vie for office and take, or a religious institution, a cultural institution. The only vehicle that vie for power is parties. And for a party can only give what it has. If the party is not democratic, you forget about democratic practices in government once the party is in power. It is so simple and logical. I can't understand why it eludes many people. You want to fix a country, fix the parties. People are trying to fix the country without fixing the parties. Decision-making organs, SEC. How can anybody expect democratic practices from a party like that? Because what happened in their primaries, what happened in Kororo, is simply a reflection of who they are internally. Why on earth would anybody expect that they can get into power and do anything else different from what they did in the party itself? It's simply mind-boggling. That's how these things are not. It's a signal. Kororo should have been a signal that this is the end of NRM, to lead. But that's why you find many of the elite going at the same time. And that's another dilemma. Because peasants are not going to lead, I can tell you. Even when they want to shift, they always be led by the elite, the political economic elite. Peasants have never led anywhere in the world. Even when they move, they are the backbone of revolutions. Eventually, the elite are the ones who lead. Now there's a total, almost a breakdown in the elite themselves. They have maybe some have struggled for too long, and they have reached a point where they have given up, and they are joining the bandwagon of looters, and literally abdicating their responsibility to the population. But Kororo was a clear signal. Anybody who has any hope in democracy should not expect that NRM can give democracy if by any accident of history they go back into power. So anybody who is supporting NRM should clearly say that democracy no longer matters. Let's simply get an opportunity. Whoever gets in there, let them eat. That's what it is. So we should be honest with each other and say, and not dress things in rhetoric. There's no way NRM can deliver democracy, because the primaries, their primaries, and they were all over the country. I don't know what happened here in Lango, but I know in the West and in Uganda, which we are monitoring, even in a number of like West Nile, like parts of East. Here, I didn't follow closely. They ended up having close to 400 petitions. It was one of the most undemocratic internal exercises any party can have. And then SEC. The press covered it fully, day and night. We saw what happened. They're buying people like goats. So if you go and buy leaders of the highest organ of a party, you tell me how a party like that can stamp out corruption. They don't have the capacity. They survive on corruption. So anybody supporting NRM, I would want them to be honest with us and say, you know what, democracy can't work. So just look for an opportunity, get in a position, and loot as much as you can. So that we all know. And know that now the political terrain in this country is such that forget about democracy, it will not work. Let's everybody position themselves to get somewhere where they can loot. Because that's what it is now, the culture. Or we say, no, we can't go that way. Let's fight, oust these fellows, and put there a new team to put the country back on track. Those are the only choices we have. Yeah. So the young people also have to learn from models. They have not seen any. That's why you find many of them are looking for where to go and survive, basically. So for them to be resuscitated in terms of hope, in terms of knowing that, oh, you know, we have the capabilities to work for money and make it on our own, there has to be the culture, the environment, and the infrastructure in place. But that can only happen when there are disciplined people who know about that it is necessary, and they have the skills to put it in place. That's when many of the youth are going to be recovered. And then they go into that process of working to advance their country, and once the country is advancing, then they also can advance as individuals. But now, what they see is that the individual first, country last. It has its costs, and it has its consequences.
Yes, thank you very much. From your speech, I think you repeatedly mentioned NRM or the Bulgaarian government, and they're also moving countrywide seeking for votes in the under slogan, protecting the gains. What do you make of this?
Protecting the gains. Yes. I normally ask people, I say, what gains are you protecting when we make engagements? The majority of them say there's nothing we are protecting, because, which is true. Will they protect poverty? Because they are crying of poverty. They are crying of lack of drugs in hospitals. They are crying of joblessness for their sons and daughters. So how will you protect what you don't have? If anything, they are seeking for the most basic. And the regime has failed in those three basic things. That's why I keep asking people, wherever you go, say, how can a regime which has failed on the three basics for the existence of a human being, again ask for votes? And then you find there are people who hope that they can vote it in. How? No drugs in hospitals. Healthcare system completely broken down. Low levels of educational system. No training skills for the youth, even those who fall out of the educational system at P7. On those, no vocational institutions which can train them in that. And no money to back them up, even when the few are skilled. To do what? And even the few, those who look for jobs, jobs are for sale. And then you ask people, say, How many people are able to eat 1 meal a day? You yourselves, you go there in some of those rural communities. Rural communities are a little bit better off than townspeople. So how many of you are able to eat more than 1 meal a day? If it's not by choice, because you can eat 1 meal a day if it's by choice. You have the money, but you don't want to eat more than once. Many want to eat 3 meals, but they don't have the money. Even eating 1 meal for many is a struggle in itself. So if a government fails on those 3 basics, why on earth would they be still looking for a vote? And 2, why would even anybody, even when they look for a vote, should anybody trust that they can do anything different from what they have been doing? Problem I notice is that because the population wants change, everywhere I've been, the dilemma is that the intelligentsia or the elite have abandoned the people. But the intelligentsia have broken down and they want to survive, and they have gone on the bandwagon. So people, in a sense, in a number of areas, are kind of leaderless. They want change, but the leaders are telling them to vote for General Assembly. It's a dilemma. It's a struggle. In a government that wants to turn around this country, us, at least, our focus is to eliminate it. And we have got the capabilities, we have the skills to eliminate it. Why is it necessary to eliminate it? Because the savings alone, the 10 trillion, if you, in dollar terms, I don't know what it is. Because that may even have gone higher than the report, the World Bank report I read a while back. The World Bank report was talking of 2 billion. But 10 trillion is more than 2 billion US dollars. So I think it has now increased. That must be the latest report, 10 trillion. Now imagine when you save 10 trillion Uganda shillings and you inject it in education, inject it in health, inject it in agriculture and infrastructure. You have basically built a foundation for the development process of the country on a sustained basis. So our policy is zero tolerance to corruption. It is easier to say that. If you don't have the will and the resolve, you can't fight it. It's like NRM. I suppose they also talk about zero tolerance to corruption. I don't know whether they still talk about that. But they just have no capacity to eliminate it. Why? Because they survive on corruption. Almost all people who are corrupt are the ones who bankroll NRM. As long as you support General Museveni, even if you cause the fall of Bank of Uganda, nobody will touch you. As long as you steal taxpayers' money in ministries, wherever you are, but you don't oppose the regime, nobody will touch you. They are incapable of doing anything in regard to the fight against corruption. They can't do that. We have the will, we have the resolve. That's what we keep telling people. Don't gamble. Make the right choices. Because choices have got outcomes. Every choice has an outcome. You make wrong choices, there is a price to pay. You make the right choices, you reap good fruits because of the right choices you make. So we keep telling people that, and we hope they will understand and make the right choices if they want to get out of the mess in which they find themselves, unfortunately. First, I'll be telling the Lango people that they should not hitch their wagons on the horse that Museveni is. They shouldn't. Because there are those who think that the only way any area can develop is by hitching their wagons on the General Museveni. But the areas that have been 100% NRM, they are no better than here. You go to places like Acholi, you go to places like Bundubujo, you go to places like Kisoro, you go to places like Bunyaruguru, you go to places like Karamoja. They have been 100% NRM. But they are as underdeveloped as actually some of the areas that have been in the opposition at times are even a little bit better off. So I'd be asking for the Langi people to trust us, at least to trust me as a potential candidate for presidency. One, because of my track record. I am a disciplined person. I am an honest person. I am a person who doesn't discriminate. I am a person who believes in justice. I am a person who believes in equal opportunities for all. Because I understand that the moment you establish those values in the culture of governance, then you'll have a firm foundation on the basis of which all areas will grow. Two, I believe in working with people who are like-minded, people who are honest. people who believe in justice, people who believe in their communities and in the country as the most critical thing that they need to advance. You develop a community, you develop a country, and from the development, you develop. Now, the culture now is that the individual develops and then they expect the country to develop. No, it's the other way around. A community cannot develop because individuals have developed, a few individuals have gone up. No, you develop a community, you develop a country, and then in the development process, you tap into the development process of a country as an individual. You build a hotel like this, and then you'll be able to get money. You build a school, or you start a farm, or you do whatever else. So the more the country develops, the more opportunities there are for those who want to do what? To tap into the development process. Of course, the unfortunate thing, I think, maybe the candidate would have drawn more votes in this particular area, I suppose, would have been Honorable Jimmy Akena, who was manipulated out of the process, clearly. I don't know whether people know that or not. Or for whatever strategies the NRM had, they never wanted him to run. So he's not in the running now. So I suppose the people of Lango would have to scan amongst the 7 of us. They should rule out Museveni. They should not consider him at all. Yeah. If they really genuinely want to get out of the mess in which we are, all of us as a country, but also Lango as a region. And therefore look at the 7 and say, of all these, whom can we trust? And then vote for any of us. For me, I'd be promoting myself, definitely, naturally. Fortunately, I have a track record. I hope they will look at it and believe in it. I don't know. Been asked that Muntu, you are critical of the government. You mean there's nothing they have done good? My approach to commending or to appreciating is different. Because to me, I can never consider anything successful unless I see the end state of it. And until we have succession, and whatever General Museveni has done, peaceful succession. And if whatever has been done survives, then that's when I start appreciating. Because I have seen countries which had more than we have. Libya, for example, was highly more advanced than we are, but now it's in shambles. Iraq was more advanced than we are, by far, but it is in shambles. So I cannot start, because it look like, if suppose you thank a regime for a road, for example, but then there is a collapse because of mismanaging a transition. I can tell you in 5 years, the road will simply disappear. Power lines can fall. Businesses can flee, even the factories that are there. So I cannot now, because to me, as he said, there can never be success unless there is good succession, so that there is sustainability. But the moment you leave, everything crumbles. Why on earth would I have thanked you? So I reserve my thanks to you.
Pour l'année, Lango dushu pe jollo Adwong General Mugisha Muntu, Lango kan itua merme wore maybe ni campaign. Ana bedo don jeje, abedo coordinator merme Alliance for National Transformation, Lango kan. Ako buka jema check kame ati mere I would me or kwa yukui mere. Dikini ninda pa wana ya kan me wor tuke nyang ni yo tia rach ento dong yo me ba aloy duari en yo wana tich kere no ka no kana yo tio kana rach palo no ne yo petia wot okwang kero tuke town council no miro duo ko chen ya leptong do bino bedo kere poch kakana ko woni dusu ka jo bino bedo me koro wa yo e kana wana binu chuchua yene du sumelo kene jo wana pe ko papol otama kane jo lwa te winyo tamere because jo du sometia binu cha gindu juti tamge papat do inke win mega dana chela metia binu ni eten mok ko tammi weg ninda para bit medo machel e bol kuir kan na me chunyo ko ana poi matek
Thank you for watching Lyra Scoop. We are glad you are here.